Hi, everyone. My name is Anthony Cruz III, and I am the publisher of the Capital Sports Report. I am also the host of the Capital Sports Report Live. As always, I am joined by Susan Wade, a longtime sports journalist with Speed Sport News, Auto Week, and Competition Plus. Tonight, we have two sisters with us, Tori Iacono and Taylor Nobile, and they are racers from the Northeast, also the nieces of top alcohol dragster driver Jackie Fricke and former pro stock driver Vincent Nobile. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.
We're so glad you're here.
Vincent, you promised to get to you, but first, we'll start with the ladies.
There you go.
Tori, let's start with you. It sounds hard to believe, but you have been driving for almost a decade under your belt so far. You started racing junior dragsters when you were 9 years old. How much has that prepared you for the Lucas Oil Drag Racing Series that you're going to be competing in this season with the black truck that Taylor used to drive?
I think just being able to learn how to drive the finish line and stuff in a slower pace will definitely be helpful when obviously I'm going way faster. And just the atmosphere of being able to learn so young and hearing all the stories from my Uncle Sean, my dad, my Uncle Lee, Taylor, Vincent, you get to learn a lot from the people around you. And being younger, it's easier to soak that all in. So I think that that'll all help me when I'm driving this year. And hopefully Taylor's good luck will rub off on me. Hopefully it's on the truck because I hope to be as successful as she was. But
you will.
But I don't know. I can't say anything yet.
Well, we were just talking about this a minute ago about how now when you started, the starting age was probably, was it 7?
It was 8 actually,
8.
But
yeah.
I wasn't even, actually, that's a funny story. I wasn't even allowed to start racing till I was 9 because I was such a crazy kid that my parents didn't even trust me when I was 8, which is crazy to now think that kids are 5 and my parents didn't even trust me when I was 8. They made me wait a whole nother year. But I still got that extra year in juniors because my birthday was on a cutoff. So I got to race till I was 18. Like most kids only get to do it till they're 17. So I still got the full experience, but it's crazy now to think that kids can do it at 5.
Yeah, I don't know if I think that's good because, Graham Light was telling me, because he was there at NHRA when they instituted that rule. And he said, think how by 5, a lot of kids are already in soccer, or they're into baseball, or they're into peewee football or something else. So it's probably good that they lowered it to 5 so that they can capture the kids' attention and get the kids interested when they're real little, because that's what other sports are doing. So not a bad idea, I guess. Seems to be working. Got a lot of little kids, right?
For sure.
So, but how long do you think it'll be before we start seeing somebody who actually started the junior program at 5 and has made it all the way to the pro ranks?
I don't even know. I guess, well, they only instituted that rule 3 years ago or 2 years ago?
3 years ago,
3
maybe. Yeah.
So, maybe as little as 12 years. Is that right, math? 12?
I'm not good at math, so I don't know.
That's why I asked you, because I'm not good at math.
I think you do the math, and as soon as someone's old enough, you'll see one of them out there for sure. That's my opinion anyways. I'm not going to do the quick math in my head, but as soon as someone's, I believe it's 17 now, you can race professionally. As soon as one of those 5 years olds turn 17, they'll be in one of the professional categories, I'm sure.
It'll feel like a blink of an eye, probably, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, that's what maybe the sport needs, some young people, but can they afford to wait for 12 more years for somebody to age enough to do that? I don't know. So what do you think? Do you think there's going to be enough young people stepping up in the meantime?
There's new people coming in all the time. For one, Taylor and Tori's friend Camry, she's new, young, up and coming pro stock racer. It's just matter of time. There'll be others out there. A lot of time it's right place at the right time. You get an opportunity, and that was kind of my story. Just right place, right time, right age. Just only time will tell.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
Tori was just at a junior race over the weekend, and I love junior dragsters. I always say if I could go back to racing them, I would, because it was one of the best experiences in my life, and I say that all the time. But Tori was just at a race at Atco, and there were probably Tori, like 40 juniors? 30?
Yeah, there was surprisingly a lot. And I mean, it is crazy, but like Taylor was saying, I mean, I think we probably fell in love with juniors more than most people do, because I would still get back in mine. But I was there, and all of our friends who we used to junior race with were all with their big cars, and we were all watching together, and we were like, wow, this is crazy. Like, this was us 5 years ago. And like, now we're all like, on to bigger things. And it is crazy, but I think we all would get back into juniors if we could.
Really? What's the appeal? I mean, just to be a kid again, you mean? Or was there something about the junior class that made it more fun? Or
personally, sorry.
You go, Tori. Say it first.
Personally, for me, which I think Taylor can agree to this, at Atco, we were really like a big family with our junior friends. We still are close with some of them, but we definitely grew up at a good track. We were all super close, racing every weekend together. So I think I would go back for that, like the friendships and the bonds we created with those people. I mean, I like junior racing too. It was fun and I enjoyed it. But Taylor, what do you think?
I would say too, like my friends in my life were racers. I had a couple friends at school that I just like had to kind of get through the day and not be lonely when I was there, because I was there a lot. But my true like core friends are from the racetrack. They still are. And I always tell Tori, like, what sport could you be able to have friends that live in Kansas? Like Rachel Meyer, I talk to her every day. She's from Kansas, Kansas, Missouri, one of those. She's like on the border of both. And I have friends from Indianapolis. Like, you don't get that in school soccer where they're all from your town. And I think it's so cool to be able to branch out and meet all these new people. Like Vincent is from New York. I was from New Jersey. Would we have met without racing? Probably not. So I'm thankful that it brought me my husband. Maybe he's not thankful, but I am.
Anthony?
Your family has a super comp dragster that you have, this is for Tori, that you have competed in, but you also have a super street license, and you'll be making your season debut in the black truck at Charlotte. The indexes and speeds are a bit slower in super street. Does that throw you off a little bit, being that you have competed in super comp? And also, have you had much time to test, being that in New Jersey, we have snow and cold weather that just is ending pretty soon. So now you're able to go out racing.
Well, to answer your first question, I got my license in the truck and did a few just like little races, like at Columbus. I ran one of their like, I don't even know what it was. I forget what it was.
Bracket
it was like, yeah, it was like a bracket race. But so I have gotten some seat time in there, and sorry, I just got distracted by that.
That's my grandma.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, Mom. But I definitely like the truck better. I enjoy the dragster and the speed, but I think that the truck is a lot easier to handle and focus more, because you're not going so fast. So I think being in the truck this year, it'll help me to be a better driver and to learn, just like Taylor did. And about the cold weathers and testing, actually, we tested the truck 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago at Atco. It was 40-some degrees. It was windy. It was ridiculous. But my dad was like, you know what? We're just going to go. You're just going to do some burnouts, hit the tree, get comfortable. You don't need to make full runs. You've done that before. You're comfortable with that. So it definitely stinks that we don't get to do more of that before racing starts, because it is so cold and snowing. But I did get lucky enough to be able to go out a few weeks ago and just get a couple hits on the tree to hopefully better prepare myself for this season and our first race in a couple weeks, or this weekend.
Was that like the day before or the 2 days after when it was like 20 degrees here afterwards, and then like 2 days after that it was like 80 degrees here?
Yeah, it was
It's like some
71
weird
here
weather
today.
over
It was so nice. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
ready to go racing now.
I'm jealous. It's about 50, 40, 50. It was 30 something the other day, yesterday, and I'm in Seattle, so
Oh.
it's always cold. It's always rainy. So we have 2 seasons. We have August and winter. That's it.
Yeah.
So you're lucky. You're getting some nice warm weather now.
Yeah.
So. But what are your, for Tori, I'll ask you this. What are your ambitions in drag racing? Right now, you're stepping to another class, and that's yet one more class. But do you want to stay there? Or do you want to turn pro in some class someday? Or
I used to say I wanted to run top dragster. That was like my end goal. But after being in the dragster, I don't know if this is just because I've only been in a few times, but it was fast and I liked it, but I definitely like the truck a lot better. I don't think I would ever do anything pro related or even like top alcohol. That I don't understand how Jackie does it. She definitely has a few screws loose because she's a little crazy. She'll do anything, but I don't think I would ever want to do something like that. I think I'll probably end up in super comp in the end. But yeah, that's probably about it.
yeah, I've had editors ask me. Oh, go ahead. What, Anthony?
Oh, I said it's only about like 280.
Yeah.
Well, I've had editors ask me, why do people
Oh,
not
speaking
want
of
to?
that, here's Jackie right here. She said I could hear you.
Sorry, Jack.
Hi, Jackie. Yeah, but I've had editors ask me, why do people not want to go pro? Why do they not want to step up? And everybody's got a different reason why they don't want to. It's a whole gamut of reasons, I guess. But I don't know that it's a bad thing. You like where you are, right, Taylor? You're nodding to that.
Yeah, I'm the same as Tori. So I had a couple opportunities to go top alcohol dragster racing, and we had a lot of it set up and ready to go. And when it came down to like pulling the final trigger of like, yes, I'm going to do this, I don't know. I'm scared. I'm not. I don't like thrill speed. Like I love where I'm at, and I love the family aspect that I can have in the position we're in. And even with Jackie, she's very fortunate that John Finke is like our family. I call him my uncle. So she got lucky with that part of it, driving like semi-pro and still having that family atmosphere. But I just love being with my family and feeling safe. I don't like feeling out of control. And I feel like that's what I would feel like stepping on the gas pedal of a top fuel car, whatever. Maybe not a pro stock car, because you said it doesn't.
I missed what you said
about feeling like out of control. I said in a pro stock car, I feel like I wouldn't feel out of control eventually, but in the beginning, I'd probably have to wear like, I don't know, a diaper because it wouldn't end well.
Oh, I've said that before. I wouldn't do this without a box of Depends handy.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
that's funny you say that too.
They're only about 200 miles an hour. So not that bad.
I can say the first time I ever went to make a run, I didn't make it 1 foot before I shoved the clutch in. So
I wouldn't even make it to the tree.
I was going to say, I think I'd stop after the burnout.
Yeah, and that's no exaggeration. I did 100 burnouts before I actually, left the starting line. And my dad said, okay, you could do a whole shot now. And he said you could put it in second gear. Well, I didn't even make it that far. I'm telling you, I dumped the clutch and I immediately pushed it back in. But then again, I've never even – that was the first race car where I've ever even driven besides a junior dragster.
Which he did like – he ran like 2 races, so I don't even count him as a junior driver.
Yeah. So maybe that's part of it because I've never felt anything accelerate other than that. But it was intense for the first time, to say the least.
So it was actually out of fear that you
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know necessarily. It was fear for sure, fear, but I think more so shock. I've never experienced something like that ever before. I've been in fast street cars, but there's no street car that accelerates like a pro stock car does, or a race car per se. Race cars are made to hook and go, not spin the tire, not do anything but go forwards. That's what they're built to do. And I was in a pro stock car, and naturally those cars accelerate very fast in comparison to a lot of race cars. And it was just something I couldn't believe how hard it left.
Vincent, we have a question for you from Jackie.
Okay. The fastest class I would race. I really like pro stock. I'm comfortable in it. I'm all about being comfortable. So I'm a very competitive person. And I think when it comes down to racing and winning, you need to be comfortable. And if you're not comfortable, you're not going to perform at the best you could perform. And I've driven mountain motor pro stocks, which were faster than the NHRA pro stocks cars I've driven. And so I guess I'd say that's my limit. I don't think I'd race pro mod. They're too sketchy for me. Too much power on a suspended wheelbase, short wheelbase car. So mountain motor pro stock's my limit. Around 225, 227.
Max here says he saw you race most of his testing in pro stock. Most of your testing.
Right on.
Where he's from, Atco?
Yep.
Okay. Taylor, this is for you. Tori told me yesterday that the baby's due around September 15th-ish, which is also just happens to be around the family's close race here at Maple Grove, with the Pep Boys Nationals at Maple Grove Raceway near Reading, Pennsylvania. Congrats to you and Vincent for having a daughter that's due in September.
Thank you.
But as we know, the baby can come at any moment, any time come September. So it could come when you guys are at Indy, or it can come after Indy. So what would it mean to you guys to potentially have the daughter around the race? Just last year, you beat Lee at Maple Grove to win your first national event.
Yeah, so the plan right now is if everything continues and our due date remains September, because they said it could change a little bit. Right now it's September 12th, but we'll see when it really is. And obviously even a due date doesn't mean that that's when the baby decides to come. So after around the second week in August, we're going to stop racing, because my biggest fear is having a baby in the motorhome, or like having to rush to a hospital that I've never been to before with doctors I don't know. So we're going to stop in August and just go from there. If anyone in my family's in the championship chase, I'm telling them all to go, except him for the birth. Then he can go after the birth, and I'll have my mom and his mother come help me. But that's our plan right now, is to kind of stop racing after the second week in August.
I'll be home. I'm going to be lucky to win a round. So it's all good.
Well, you know, we've got the world racing, you know, has the world outlaws, and I think in drag racing it may be the world of in-laws. I'm not sure. It's like I think Taylor and Tori, your parents met at a drag strip, right?
Yes.
And I'm not sure about your mom and dad, Vincent, but
No.
But then you know, Jackie is your aunt, and then you got, you know, that whole side of the family races, and then Vincent, your sister Nicole, is married to Hector Arana Jr., and so you've got that connection with that family, and it's like it's kind of it's when we've talked about family, and we've mentioned it several times, but I think I can't think of another sport that's got this much family, and I don't think drag racing used to be like this. I think it's become family oriented, but it wasn't in the early years by far, you know. Maybe up until the 70s, I don't think it was really a great place for kids to hang out, but now it is. So can you put that in words to you know, you talked a little bit about it, Taylor, but I think, you know, it's I just think it's really unique. I mean, do you appreciate how unique that really is?
Yeah, I talk about it all the time. I think it's so special to grow up in the drag racing community. It's not even about the physical part of like actually racing. That's just like the tiniest part of the whole picture. I tell Tori all the time, like, there were kids in our high school who got in trouble with drugs, with bad decisions, and parties that got busted by like police and stuff. And Tori and I were never at those parties because we were always at the racetrack. Like, we were with our mom and dad and my aunts and cousins, and that's how we grew up. We spent every Easter at Atco, which is awesome that we're going to Atco for this weekend on Easter. It brings me back to like my childhood. And I tell him how fortunate I am that now we're going to raise our daughter at the racetrack, and hopefully she's going to get into junior racing. I hope she likes racing as much as we do, but that's our plan. And I think it really shapes you into the person that you become because you're surrounded by family and not like it kind of blocks out some of the bad things that go on in the world.
Taylor, if your kid doesn't race, they won't be allowed in our family.
Yeah, she's going to race. Don't worry. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I could chime in. Well, about what? About
Like,
family?
yeah.
Well, me specifically, naturally, I'm not racing pro stock anymore, and I haven't been for quite some time. So I'm home sitting on the couch. Naturally, drag racing's in my blood, and I wanted to go back racing. So I dreamt up I wanted to go bracket racing. I'm watching these big money bracket races, and that seemed enticing. So I started building a dragster and whatnot. But then, me and Taylor were together, and I'm like, this makes no sense. I'm going to go bracket racing. She's going to be going to the NHRA races. So back to that family deal, I said I scratched that whole thing, and now I'm 100% going NHRA racing to be with Taylor, her family, and everybody.
And bring your family too.
Yeah, well, of course, my family's joined at the hip with me, especially my father. But like I said, it's more so about being with everybody, hanging out, than just the racing. It's to hang out with family.
And it also builds, one last thing to add, it also builds a lot of character for a child to be around when you're junior racing, because you don't get a participation trophy. I'm like, I might offend people by this, but like, I don't believe in participation trophies. You should get a trophy when you deserve a trophy. And I think like teaching us that like every round you go up there, you're not winning, and that's okay. And to get to the winner circle takes you that much more effort and practice and goal setting to get there. And it's not just like a soccer game where you have this whole team. It's about you and your parents in most cases, or your crew chief, whatever. You really have to rely on those people around you, and it makes you appreciate the win even more because they're not easy to get.
When I did the profile on you, Taylor, we talked about participation trophies and how you and I don't like those.
No, I don't think they're a good idea. I agree.
Oh, look at this. Yes, what Sarah said. Yeah.
Tori and I used to have a big kickball game at the end of Atco with all the junior kids. We would line up and we would have a captain and we would pick teams, and we would do that every weekend. And those are memories that you can't get other places.
That's so cool. Alan Johnson's mom, Ravonda, told me that when Roy was racing, that she would have the kids at the track and she'd do Easter egg hunts in the grass behind the grandstands and things like that.
We did those growing up.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah.
Jackie put them on every year for all the kids.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I asked her if we were going to have one this weekend.
Yeah.
Are you?
She didn't really give me a good answer. She said no, we were too old.
No,
well, she is
you're never
listening.
too old.
So.
Yeah, I think we should have $20 eggs scattered all over the grass.
Yeah, they did that at NHRA at Las Vegas. They had an Easter egg hunt thing in the pits. I don't know exactly what was inside the eggs. I can't remember, but certificates for something, I think. But how funny! That's a great idea. Anyway,
Taylor,
Anthony, I think I interrupted you. Sorry.
Oh, that's all good. Taylor, do you have a timetable for when you will return to drag racing? You guys mentioned Rachel Meyer, and she's pregnant right now with we don't know the sex of the
we don't know
kid, but we do know that she's pregnant. And when she was on here in February or March, she said that she's not racing top alcohol dragster, and well, we were like kind of like, what's going on? But now we know that she's pregnant. She's competing in a truck, like a pickup or something like that, at like Mocan Dragway, I believe it is. Do you plan to compete anytime soon that you're pregnant, or you're just gonna sit out the whole year and come back next year?
So my plan is to sit out the whole year. I just want to make sure that I try to have the healthiest baby possible. And I feel like, I don't know, I just don't want to risk anything with racing. So I'm going to take the year off. And then the plan is next year, I'm going to come back full force. And with the help of my mom and Vincent's mom, if she comes to the track, and between Vincent and I running different categories, Aunt Tori over there, everybody will pitch in and we'll be able to make sure Riley, that's our daughter's, that's what her name's going to be. So Riley will be taken care of when mom and dad are up racing.
So Rob Keister has a comment here. He's from the .90 series. He said, "Come on, Jay."
Hey, Taylor, I have a question for you. What are you going to race next year?
That'll be a discussion between my sister, my father, and I after the season ends. We'll maybe have to put it in a raffle or something. The truck goes in a raffle, and whoever picks it.
We're gonna have to pick out of a hat, and I hear Mom's gonna get her license soon, so we might have another one to fight with.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll
share it.
We'll think about that in a year.
Your mom is Amy, right? Amy.
Yes.
Yeah. Didn't she used to race though as well? So she's just getting a refresher license, or she's getting another class?
She stopped racing. 23 years ago. She stopped racing with Taylor.
Oh, okay.
But
she had her super comp license, and she ran like a. What did she run? A Camaro, I think.
It was a door car, but she stopped, and then she just never got back into it because obviously Taylor and I raced, and she was always more concerned about taking care of us and being there for us. So we're trying to convince her to get her license in the truck, but I think she needs to personally watch me race first because she still closes her eyes when I go down the track. And then I think after that she'll be ready. But I hope by the end of this year, hopefully she'll get in the truck and get her license, because that would be cool to, have our mom back out there.
Now, you're gonna have to get 3 trucks just for everybody.
Yeah, my dad needs to start working another job so we can all have a bunch of race cars.
Yeah, he'll say you need to start getting another job, right?
I like it better, the idea of him getting another job.
Well, that sounds better. That sounds more fun to have him do it, But now you guys, and I didn't realize this till just recently, that Josh Hart with his Bernies has sponsored both you ladies, so both you gals, whatever. Don't want to be insulting here, but so how long have you known Josh? I mean, how long has he been doing that?
A few years.
So Josh and I met in 2017, I think it was, when he started running Atco Dragster, and kind of an odd story, but they used to have an alcohol lobster party at Epping, New Hampshire's divisional. So him and his team were like staring at these lobsters, and I was like, "Do you guys need help cracking these things? Like, do you know how to eat them?" And they like laughed at me. So then I sat down and like was literally teaching them how to like crack these lobsters. And Josh said, I think it just started like a backstory, like, who are you? Like, what do you race and stuff? So I told him that I was starting in Super Street, and he said, well, what if we got together and created a marketing partnership? And then it just ended up taking off from there. And since then till now, and he's been sponsoring Tori for the last 2 years, right, Tori?
Longer than that, because he did it. He started the same year. He did my junior the same year, or the year after he started.
Yeah. So he's been doing both of us since 2017, essentially. And he's a great guy. Him and Brittany are awesome, and they've been supporting us, and they've been a huge reason as to why Tori and I have been able to really travel and get to run all of these races with his support.
That's really cool. I did not realize he'd been doing that as long as he has. I am not surprised that he did not know how to crack a lobster, because like me, he grew up in Indiana. We don't eat lobsters in Indiana, so anyway, sorry about that.
Now we'll go to Vincent. Thanks for being patient with us, Vincent. Now it's your turn. Tell us what you got going on in racing. When will we see you next at a drag strip, and what class?
So my plan is to be out there this coming weekend with Tori at Atco at the Open in Super Comp. And from there, bearing everything goes well, I'm gonna race the Northeast Division and hit a few national events in Super Comp, to be specific.
So we'll see you both the next 2 weekends at Atco for
That's the
the
plan.
Open and the Divisional.
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll also go back to Vincent for this question. Vincent, we have lost 3 racetracks that have meant a lot to you. The tracks at Englishtown, New Jersey, where you grew up racing a short distance from your house in New York, at Atlanta, where you won in Pro Stock in 2018 and reached the final last year before losing to Greg Anderson. Both are gone from the NHRA schedule. In Houston, where you earned your very first Pro Stock win, will host its last event next weekend. Let's talk about that and how those closings have impacted you as a driver.
Just as a racer in general, it's never good to see tracks closing. It would be like baseball fields closing down for baseball players. It's not a good thing. And, there's not many around in the country as there is. So every time one goes away, it makes it that much harder for all of us. Especially the locals there in Houston now. It's going to affect them the most, more so than me, because naturally, being a divisional racer now, I would never really go to Houston. But for those guys out there and girls, it's going to affect them a lot. Especially I dealt with it with Englishtown. That was the closest race to me, considered my home track for the longest time, which then converted over to, I would call Maple Grove my first. My home track. Meanwhile, I'm out in New York, Long Island. That would be the next closest thing. And it's really not even that close. But yeah, it's not good seeing these tracks close. It's a shame. I almost wish I grew up back in the 70s. There were 3 racetracks out here on Long Island, which I never even got to witness because I'm too young. They were all closed down. But I'm fortunate Atco's still around. There was talks that was going to, get shut down, but it didn't. So everybody out here is thrilled about that. Just as racers in general, we have to do whatever it takes to, keep these tracks around. Not really sure. I guess it's a money thing. I feel like everything boils down to money at the end. And I guess these track owners, they see, I don't know if they see dollar signs or whatnot, but, sometimes you can't blame them if you can't make money doing it. But at the end of the day, it really stinks seeing these tracks closed down.
Are you going to get one on Long Island? I mean, there was a big whoop-de-doo a few months ago. Now all of a sudden, I haven't heard anything more.
Yeah, they're trying. They're trying really hard, but it's gonna be some feat. I don't know if it'll ever be an actual racetrack, but I think they'll get something to where you could have basically street legal cars drag racing, which is good. It'll take the street racing, hopefully some of it anyways, off the street and onto the track. But it's tough. It's tough now with the towns and whatnot getting permission from everyone. They're trying though, and they have. I think they have a few scheduled races this year out at that track that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's out in Calverton.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to any of them last year, but supposedly, it's been very popular. A lot of people show up, and I mean, it would be great. I mean, there's so many racers out here on Long Island that don't have anything close. You got to go over the bridge to go racing, and it's a hassle. So if they were to do something, it would definitely be popular, and they'd have no problem getting cars to show up and fans to show up. That's for sure.
Vincent, let's talk about Englishtown. You touched about that, and I told Tori this yesterday that we talked in 2013, and I did a story and quoted you in that story that at that time you were hearing speculation that Old Bridge Township Raceway Park was going to be a strip mall, and the story that I wrote when I talked to you than almost a decade ago. You did not want it to be a strip mall, and then unfortunately, 5 years later, we lost it.
Yeah, I mean, English Town in general, since I as long as I can remember was getting shut down. That was almost a never-ending battle for the Naps. They were constantly fighting with the town, trying to just stay afloat. It was not good. It wasn't easy for them. But they kept it going for a long time. And unfortunately, I never got to win professionally there. I came close a couple times, but that's one of the things I look back on and wish I would have done since we can't go back there and race.
Now it's unfortunately a drift track.
Yeah, and I'm not much of a drifter.
Oh, me neither. I won't go there for that. From with drift stuff, nope, I'm not going there for that. We hear that the NHRA is looking at fresh new tracks to replace some of the old ones that are being lost now. Is that a good idea from your perspective of a former pro driver, or do you think that the sport should just turn to the events and pare back a little and go to like the pro stock did a few years ago? Instead of 24 races, they go to like only 18 races.
I think for the fans, you need as many races as possible. But you're talking to a guy that's got a regular job at home. So when racing for pro stock went down from 24 to 18, it was almost like a sigh of relief. It was tough. 24 races a year is tough to have to go racing, come back home, work, and then go back racing. It's just, there's not enough time in a day. So for me, it was good. But for a spectator point of view, there needs to be races. They need to be watching it, every weekend to stay up with it. Like NASCAR, there's barely any breaks with NASCAR. I couldn't tell you how many races there are, but I'm pretty sure there's more than 24.
I think there's 36 of them.
Yeah, yes, there's a bunch. And I think that's one of the reasons why it may be a little bit more popular. But as far as touching base on going to the same tracks, I don't think that's necessarily important. But it would be nice to have more than how many different, do you know off the top of your head how many different tracks they go to on the tour of the 24? I think it's like 16 or 15.
I thought it was 19.
19,
which surprised me when I counted them.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't think it was that many, but naturally the more places you go, you broaden your demographic a little bit. More people are seeing it now. More people could actually go to the track itself, not have to travel. So in my opinion, having more races is better for the spectators, for the sport. It just allows more people to be there and physically be there and see it rather than watching it on your computer or television.
But now, then that kind of gets back to it's great for the fans, but like you said, it may not be great for the racers because we're talking lots of money.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, anything, no matter what it is, baseball, basketball, football, it's a show. You're putting on a show, and you're putting on a show for the spectators. And without the spectators, there's really no show per se.
But like right now, money's always tight. You always hear that no matter what you're doing. And you got supply chain issues now, and you got just sponsorships have always been hard to come by, no matter what the economy is doing or swirling around us. So and this is for you ladies as well. When you're out there talking to companies, when you're talking about sponsorship or maybe having a marketing partnership with somebody, what kinds of things are you hearing right about now? What's the mood out there for sponsorships?
I've been very fortunate to have new sponsorships come about this year, actually, that I can't obviously put to use this year, but that I hope to continue next year. But the biggest thing from sponsors that I've heard, because I'm affiliated with NGK, VP Lubricants and Race Fuels, Bernie's, Wright Trailers this year came on board with Tori and I. And the biggest thing with them is that they say is that they just want to see the effort that they put into you back to them. And a couple companies have said over the years, they'll give people money or product or whatever your deal is, and then they don't see the reciprocation back on social media. So as much as it can be a little awkward to like post about yourself, and I'm not like the biggest social media person, like I don't really necessarily enjoy always talking about myself on the internet. That's like the biggest thing that they want to see, is that you're promoting their brand, promoting the company, talking about it, wearing their t-shirt, posting and hashtagging on social media. So the biggest thing they say is now that because money's a little bit tighter, they're really narrowing down their group of people who they're sponsoring. And it really comes down to who's giving them the most kickback in posting and promoting. And they don't have that extra free money to necessarily give to a bunch of people. They're kind of bringing it back to just a core group of individuals.
Do you feel this? Maybe you're good with social media. Maybe you too, Tori. I don't know. Or is it like, now I got to be a social media, expert or what? Do you feel that pressure to do that? Is that all they're really looking for, is social media?
That's a huge aspect of it, but they're also looking for, like, if you're just a good person. Like, I know a lot of the companies I'm affiliated with love my family aspect of it. So I don't know if that makes me a bigger candidate for a sponsorship, because I come with a lot of people and a lot of family atmosphere. Like my sister, we go in on a package deal a lot with companies. So it's like they're getting the two of us for the price of one, I guess you could say, or that we're two young women. I think it is definitely easier to get a sponsorship as a younger girl. I can say that I think that comes across easier with some companies, because maybe we're easier to market than a 50-year-old guy. I don't know. Or maybe it's because we're fresh on social media. But it definitely gets a little stressful to like make sure you're posting things that they want to see, and not just like, I'm at the track and I lost first round, like that kind of thing. Or I lost second round. Like they really want to see you promoting them, and you should be, because they're giving you a good incentive to do so.
Yeah, I can say I definitely am not the best at social media. Taylor is constantly reminding me to post something, to say something. I'm just not good. I don't like talking about, well, I like to talk about myself to my family, but not to other people. I think definitely it's getting easier because, being older and like, more mature about like being able to post about certain things. When you're in high school, it's like you're posting all this stuff and your friends at home are like, why are you doing this? Like nobody cares. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, like it's for racing, so it's harder. But, Taylor and I both have been, blessed with sponsors like Josh. He's always been there and supportive of both of us. And our social media has definitely gotten better over the years. And being able, I think, for Taylor and I to do Jackie's social media, like helps us a lot to like, get to learn new things, watch people's posts, read them. It definitely is easier to relate yourself to things like that and market yourself a little bit better. But we definitely have been blessed with good sponsors over the years that have worked with us. And,
Well, and then Vincent, that's great for the gals, but you're a guy, does that mean you have to work harder to be marketable?
Yeah,
Or?
it's probably why I don't have a sponsor. I'm a guy. I'm an old man, old fart.
Are you being discriminated against now?
Yeah, I think I am actually.
No, I'm not. That's no knock on your own family, but I'm just saying in general, are guys finding it tougher because they're not as marketable? Maybe in some people's eyes.
I couldn't answer that. I don't really know. I think you need to just put yourself out there. For example, I could think of one person, Alex Laughlin. He's great at marketing himself, and he knows what he's doing with social media. And I think that's part of why he gets a lot of his sponsorships, is because of that. Nowadays, marketing and media and sponsorship, it's all changed. Where before it was television, newspapers, and radio, now it's social media. Everyone's on social media. And I think if you want to have support and sponsorship, you need to have a large following on social media. They look at how many followers you have, how many likes you get on all of your posts. And if you want a big company to sponsor you, you need to invest a lot of your time into that, because that's what they look at first and foremost.
It also, another big thing too, aside from just like the person or who they're sponsoring, they also, the biggest thing I've heard too from people is like PRI is not the place to approach a sponsor. Like having a good moment that you have to communicate, whether it's like through an email and say, hey, could we schedule a time where we Zoom call or where we talk on the phone? Like Josh has been really good with Tori and I in teaching us that kind of thing too. All of our conversations, even though we're friends, are on a phone call where we like schedule a meeting and say like, okay, at this day, this time, we're going to talk about the season. So like that's helped us learn like kind of the business side of racing, I guess you could say. And some of the bigger companies too, they don't want to hear like, what can I get? Like us asking what we can take from them. They want to know what we can give to them from us and from our social media and our personality and stuff. So I always start out a proposal with how much I like the company, some things I've learned about the company, what the company already does in my vehicle, because I think that's a big thing too. If you don't run the product already, it's kind of hard to sway them into like saying, hey, I never supported you, but I really want your help now in money or product. So I think that's a big thing too. But like Vincent said, it kind of all comes down to how you promote yourself on social media.
Yeah, and another thing Taylor touched on, which like I personally, I'm going to school right now for social media and communications and stuff, and I'm learning a lot now. But Josh, from being 16 and being sponsored by someone, Josh was very good with me with like me being a kid. I'd call him and I would say things and he'd be like, no, you need to say XYZ, and like teaching me like the right way to approach someone while also sponsoring me and helping me. But also like Taylor said, he really did teach us how to like promote ourselves, how to approach people. And I mean, so not only has he been a huge part of our racing, but also in learning to talk about racing and marketing ourselves, which is pretty cool.
Do you think that maybe we should have some more consumer goods out there? Like if you, like, I don't know, you drink Minute Maid orange juice or something. Have you thought about going to those? Because it seems like we keep asking the same automotive industry people, and you see a lot of that
over and over again. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, maybe NASCAR has done a really good job, and even IndyCar has done a decent job of getting, but NASCAR better, I think, than anybody, of getting non-endemic sponsors. And I mean, is that something that maybe you think, maybe a little brainstorming, you can figure out some new people to bring in and start a trend that way?
So I've tried to reach out to some companies. That was a big thing over this off season and last off season, that I tried to really think outside the box and not just like Lucas Oil, NGK, VP, Hoosier, Goodyear, like the people that everyone's trying to get, and instead go outside the box. But it's very hard to even get in touch with someone. Like, for example, I tried to get a hold of Gatorade. I tried to bring Gatorade into the sport, and I got through like one person that then sent me to another person, and then they didn't know who to send me to from there. And then I was kind of getting frustrated and just like ended it at the like whatever, maybe third hand communication that I got. So it's very hard to get somebody to even understand what it's like to be a drag racer. And I think it's easier for the pros to bring in a bigger company because they have TV time to go along with it. A Sportsman driver doesn't have TV time. I'm fortunate, and so is Tori. We have places like Capital Sports Report. We have done some other interviews in the past that get us on a screen per se and get us out there and to different parts of the country. But it's a little difficult to get companies to understand if they don't know what I'm talking about. They just think it's like a stupid sport that I'm asking them to come into.
Yeah. And actually last year with Jackie, because Taylor and I help her with a lot of that stuff. Jackie and I had talked about trying to get, different companies to come in and help. But we actually last year got a yacht company to sponsor her for the Houston race, I think, actually. Because we had, rented a boat. John Fink rented us and a bunch of teams a boat to go out on. And the captain, we started talking about racing, and he was like, what would it take for me to get my name on the side of your car? And it was just like a vision. Jackie was like, that was really easy. Like, if we could get more companies like that. And then we got, 5 people that never heard about racing before that come to Houston. They watch us all the time. Like, it helps to get people who don't know what drag racing is into the sport and, be able to get some sponsorships out there.
Yeah, because you all are very well spoken. I mean, you'd be great ambassadors for any brand, I think. So,
I think it's also right place at the right time. Like she's saying about the yacht club, they were on a boat with the captain, and I talked about Josh. Like, had I not gone to that lobster party, would Josh and I have formed this partnership? I don't necessarily know. And Jackie's brought us in some situations that have helped. NGK came from her originally, and now we've been friendly with everyone at NGK, and Tori and I do Jackie's social media, so we get to talk with them there. VP Race Fuels kind of started with Jackie too. She had introduced us to one of the not head sponsorship people, but somebody who's very influential in that decision making, and that helped us. So it's kind of like getting into the right place at the right time and meeting the right people, kind of like Vincent's story with Pro Stock. He met the right person, and that's how that happened. Don't you think racing's kind of a lot of right place, right time?
I think that's how the world goes around.
Yeah.
It's all who you know, right place, right time.
Relationships.
Life in general.
I think you're right.
Rob says you have to learn to ask and to also be okay with rejection.
Because you're going to get rejected a lot more than you're going to get accepted.
Yes. So this question is for all three of you guys. We've seen several stories lately about the NHRA trying different things to increase its appeal. One mentioned is a potential video game. Now we hear that they're talking about sports books and about potentially gambling on drag racing. What do you guys think about that? And then when we potentially bring in sports books, we got to make sure that we don't have an incident like the NFL just had last season when the guy was actually betting on his team and got suspended a year for it.
I'll start with that. I personally think the gambling thing would probably be a good idea because at least from, our side of the family, everybody likes to gamble. So that would probably bring in a whole new demographic of people who, sports betting is a huge thing. We were just out in Vegas and all the hotels and casinos have like big areas for sports betting. So I'm sure that could bring in, some possible people. And a video game, definitely I think would get, younger kids involved because I work at a daycare and all of the boys are always talking about all their video games that they play and, all these crazy things. And I think that they would so be interested in something like that. And you could maybe, interest some younger boys or girls to, get out and maybe ask their parents if they can go to a race or maybe even end up, getting their own car.
I'm with Tori. The sports betting, I think would be a huge success. Everybody I know bets on football, and that's like a huge thing. And some people bet on NASCAR and other stuff like that. So just to have that going on might entice someone to say, oh, I'm on my FanDuel account and now it's telling me to bet on an NHRA race. Now let's go watch to see if our driver that we bet on wins. And they'll tell their friends and it could just keep on going. And for the video game, I'm not into video games. I'd rather go outside and like play basketball or something, but so much of our world is in their little headphones and TV screen and playing video games. So I definitely think it's a great idea to bring drag racing to that side because video games is something that like everyone does, I feel like.
Vincent, what do you think?
I don't think neither of the two can hurt. That's for sure. You know, even if it brings 1% more people into the sport, that's a positive thing in my eyes. I don't think there's any negative to it. As far as the gambling, I'm a gambler myself. I like to gamble. Little story, in 2011 when I first raced Vegas, when you raced at Vegas, you could gamble on the NHRA races.
Mhm.
And being that it was my first year for Pro Stock, you know, they listed 10 drivers and then they listed the field to win. I wasn't one of the 10 drivers because this is my third race. So anyways, I don't know exactly what the odds were, but it was like 500 to 1 for the field. So I'm part of the field. We bet, I think it was $1,000. And I went to the final. It was my first ever final. We would have won more on the gambling bet than NHRA would have paid us. That I do remember for a fact. Anyways, Mike Edwards beat me in the final, so we lost both. But it was fun.
But do you think there would be an issue with people taking dives? I mean, we know it's happened. It's happened.
I mean, listen, it's happened in much bigger sports, like you said. Major League Baseball. Who was it? Pete Rose.
Rose, yeah.
Yeah.
Listen,
He didn't take a dive. He just bet on his own team.
Yeah, I mean, which all in all, I mean, as long as you're betting to win and not lose,
Exactly.
I don't see anything wrong with that. But you never know. People do crazy things, but a lot of these racers I could pretty much vouch for are very competitive, and they won't bet to lose. They'll bet to win, which, like I said, I don't see a problem with.
I don't see a problem with that either, but apparently the NFL does, because the kid from the Raiders giving up an $11 million salary for a year because he bet on himself. I thought,
crazy.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley.
Yeah,
well,
why
would you're betting on yourself? It's a problem because I don't know, you're putting money in to bet for yourself, and you still have to perform to win the bet. So, but like he said, if it was like to lose and then you started like intentionally losing, I think that would be a problem. But to win, I don't see a problem with it.
I don't see it affecting the competition at all. A lot of these teams, they're too invested in. They're spending a lot of, especially the professional teams. They're spending a lot of money to win. Besides, they've all got sponsorships to answer to, and companies to do well for, and it just wouldn't be good if they're gambling in the negative side of things.
Yeah, no. I mean, I see a lot of good in it, as long as there's some rule or policy in place that you'd punish people who were trying to lose. That would be bad. But like NASCAR had that big exhibition race or whatever, the preseason thing out at the LA Coliseum, and now right after that, everybody was saying, "Oh, NHRA should do all these different things and do something similar." But I don't know what NHRA could even do. They can't go racing down Interstate, 95, or I mean, they can't do. I don't know what they could do that would be like a wow factor beyond the show's already a wow kind of a spectacle anyway. So, I mean, what do you think about it? Could the NHRA and should they try to do something similar to what NASCAR did in LA?
There's always opportunities to bring attention. For example, I know Formula One is coming to Vegas in 2023, I believe.
Yep.
And what would be better than to, like I saw someone say, have a Top Fuel Dragster or a funny car do a long smoky burnout right down the strip, just like NASCAR does, just to bring some awareness, for a show, just not a race or nothing, but a lot of these people don't follow drag racing. They're going to watch the Formula One race, but now they see that, they're like, oh my God, I've never witnessed that in my life. Just stuff like that. I mean, there's people that do things all the time, these teams. Like I've seen the Torrances, they go to a lot of shows and they start up their car. I think they started up the car for the mayor
Yeah.
or something like
In
that.
Austin, I believe it was.
Yeah. Just stuff like that. You know, the drag racing world is actually very small. There's a lot of people, but it's tight, and we all know about it. We need people that don't know about it to see. Actually, I have a personal story. Just the other day, I have my race car over in a parking lot because I have nowhere to park it right now. I'm not going to give specifics, but I had to start the thing up. I had to warm it up, and I live in a regular neighborhood where people don't know anything about drag racing. The loudest car they've heard is, the car they start up in their driveway. And I literally had to start up my dragster and, do a few tests. And I'm about a mile down the road from my home. And I had to put the thing on the converter. And I get a phone call as I'm doing this, and it's from Taylor. She's saying, "Did you just floor it?" I said, I had to call her back because I was all done. And I called her up. She's like, "I just heard that from the house." So meanwhile, she heard it from a mile away. And now people are coming out of this building and they're coming to look at my car for the first time. And they were like amazed. And now this is no professional race car, but to someone who's never seen something like this before or hear it, their jaw hit the ground. They thought this was the coolest thing ever. And, I let them look at it. They asked a bunch of questions, and the one guy was like, "I want to come watch this." And it was as simple as that. Something as simple as that got someone intrigued that they've never even knew about.
That's cool. That's cool.
And Tori, to add to Tori and I too, we went to school 4 minutes away from Atco. So people knew about it, but it was actually surprising at the amount of people who didn't know about it and only live like literally a mile down the road from it. So which is so cool, we had teachers who would come every year, and we would like bring our teacher to the racetrack. And
my English teacher used to come every year. And like Taylor said, I mean, we live literally, I mean, you can hear Atco when they're running on a Friday night. It's crazy. But, going to high school, and I had one kid who surprisingly transferred schools. We junior raced together. But other than that, when I would tell people, my teachers I drag race, they're like, "What is that?" And I would be like, Atco. And they're like, "Yeah, we pass it, but we don't know what it is." And it's crazy. People don't know what this sport is, and explaining it to people. I mean, we're racing this weekend, and a bunch of girls from my work are like, "We're going to bring our kids." They've never seen anything like this. So it is cool. You get to bring people out, but I mean, not a lot of people have ever heard about it, anything. And like Taylor said, we live so close. So it's crazy that people don't know what it is.
And I teach a mommy and me class in one of the areas that we live in. And I did a race car event, and I had to, it's to younger kids. They're anywhere from 1.5 to 5-ish years old. So I did this, and I brought my helmet in, and I had to make it very toned down to age appropriate. But the parents were so involved in this, and now they've been watching on Fox. I mean, it's not me, but they're still watching, and they ask me every weekend, "Oh, where are you going this weekend? Where are you going that weekend?" And I really had to explain that, because they thought it was just a boy thing. They were like, "Oh, we'll bring our son to the event." And I was like, "Well, just so you guys know, I'm a female racer, and a girl can do it too. So bring your daughters too. It doesn't have to just be a guy thing." So even just something silly like that, I have now probably 20 people in this building who ask me about racing from time to time, and now they're into it, and all just from one little 30-minute event about drag racing.
That's good. Maybe you could do it like Jasmine Salinas did a video.
Yes.
Like a documentary or whatever. It was really short, but it was really cool. And it opened a lot of eyes where she works, So, but see, that's the weirdest thing about people living close by. I grew up in Indianapolis, and that's the only place in the world where people build their homes as close as they can, or buy homes as close as they can to the racetrack, so they can brag that they hear the noise. They love the noise. Mm-hmm. That's the only place I know. Everybody else is trying to get rid of it, but that's one place where they love it, But I do have one. And then I'll let Anthony do more talking here. I'm sorry, I'm being gappy, but I was talking to Don O'Neill, and you probably are really well acquainted with him through NGK and everything else, but he was saying that we in the media need to start referring to the, don't say sportsman. He feels that's kind of insulting, the way, maybe it's the way it's said, but he thinks we should say, and he opened my eyes to refer to, they should be referred to as Lucas Oil Series racers as opposed to sportsman racers. Are you on the tire as much about that as Don is?
I don't think I necessarily have like thought about it as much, but I do think we're treated a little poorly sometimes, and you can definitely feel like you're not always the show. And for example, when I won Maple Grove National and when Jackie's won some races, when you go to do the interview part on the side of the return road where they give you your trophy and make it a big deal, they rush you through it and they're like, let's go, like next person. And it's the first thing that they get rid of if they're on like a rain delay or anything. And I think it's pretty crappy that your one moment to like talk about your sponsors and your family, which also pay some of the bills to get there, you don't get that opportunity to talk about it because it's just the pros have to come in and do their thing. And like we do make up some of the purse money for the pros because we pay $310. Is that what it is? Do you think? $340 to enter a race where they don't have to pay. Yes, I know that they're bringing more of a show than we are, but we're putting a lot of money and time, and we're there on a Wednesday, racing till Sunday, getting pushed into whatever time frame fits best. And you're signing up for that when you go to the track. I get that. But sometimes I wish we got a little bit more, I guess, better treatment to say, especially with the time that they try to cut when you win a national event. That's a huge deal and a huge accomplishment. And I was very fortunate that when I won, they gave us the time because they weren't on a rain delay or anything. But I don't think that should go away just because it rained. I think they should be able to give people the opportunity to speak just as much as they give a pro driver or whatnot.
Yeah, and even like Taylor just said, I even think like Taylor is very fortunate to, win a race at such a young age and still have a really long time to, hopefully win more national events. But I've been at races where Jackie's won and you hear these like cute little old men going up and they've been racing for 50 years and they've never won. And like, it's such a huge accomplishment for them. And like, to be rushed, it does stink. You want to go up there and thank, your wife, your kids, whoever. So I definitely think like something like that, like Taylor said, they do need more time to be able to go up there and say what they want to, because it is a huge accomplishment to win, and not everybody gets to win a national event in their drag racing career.
Yeah, we see you get sometime, like you said, on NHRA.tv, but you don't see it on the big broadcast. And what's the answer? I don't know, Vincent, you've seen it from both sides.
So personally, I wouldn't get too worked up about being called a sportsman. I mean, one, you're not a professional. There's only 4 professional classes, so you can't call yourself a professional, but that doesn't make you any less of a racer. There has to be a description. If he wants to be called, or whoever wants to be Lucas Oil Series racer versus sportsman. To me, it's just a name to be called. You have to have some sort of description, and it's always been sportsman. And to me, being called a sportsman racer, like I said, doesn't make you any less of a racer. That's just the type of racing you're doing, period. And to be completely honest, I think it's harder to win a sportsman race than it is a professional race. A lot of professional classes, you can't necessarily buy your way to the top, but money goes a long way. You could be the best driver possible, but if you don't have the funds and the money and a team of talent, you as a great driver, you're not going to do anything. You might not even qualify. But if you're a great driver in a sportsman class, you could win a bunch of races. And that's why I just wouldn't get worked up about the description of being called sportsman versus pro. But as far as what the girls were saying, yeah, the sportsman racers, they don't get treated as professionals, but at the same time, you go to a divisional race, everyone's considered a professional. You know, everyone's treated the same. But once you go to a national race, now you have to remember the pro classes are there. And like I mentioned before, this is a show. This is a show for the spectators, and the spectators, for a majority, go to watch the professional classes. It just is what it is. They're more appealing. And I mean, personally, I would say that's correct. You know, I would rather watch a top fuel dragster rather than a pro stock car as a fan. And meanwhile, I love pro stock the most. You know, that's what my, you know, love is pro stock, but they're not as fun to watch. And you just go down the list. But to touch base again, being a sportsman racer doesn't make you any less of a racer. I know plenty of sportsman racers that if they had the opportunity, and it comes down to just right spot at the right time, to be a professional racer, if they had the desire, they'd have no problem doing it. They'd be just as competitive in a professional class as they would be in a, you know, sportsman ranked class.
The only flip side I'll say to this too, and Vincent probably doesn't know as much as Tori and I did, but we went to a PDRA race when we were younger and as junior drivers. And PDRA does such an amazing job of making everyone feel important. They take time for every single person to be time for an interview, a picture. They bring them up alongside the track at every race. And when we got there, we had asked someone, oh, where's tech? Like to get teched in. And they were like, oh, they come to you. And my dad was like, they come to a junior driver's trailer to tech you. And they were like, yeah, everybody gets teched in at their trailer. So something like so silly like that, my dad was like, wow, that's like really cool that they call it Pro Boost and Pro Nitrous, but that's Pro Mod to them. And that's their biggest class they have. But yet they're still going to do the exact same thing for a junior dragster. So that made us like really like that environment a lot. And I think there's just, like Vincent said, I wouldn't worry about the sportsman side of it, like the title, I guess you could call it. But more so, like they could change a few things to make us feel a little bit more important and like valued as a customer almost. You could call us a customer because that's what we are.
Yes.
Treating the customer a little bit better than we do right now. Like the muddy pit spots that they shove people in. Like Vincent had never really experienced that. And I was like, yeah, like look at these people in Gainesville. I know they can't help the rain, but they're parked in like 4 inches of mud and they have to wait till Sunday to make a time shot when they've been there since the week before. And like, who could take off that much work? And most sportsman drivers work. They have full-time jobs. They own a business. They have to be there to make money. So that's my thing on the whole sportsman versus pros. But in the end, the pros are the show, and you come to a national event knowing that that's how you're going to get treated, and yet we still go. So clearly we don't hate it that much.
But it's a business. It is.
Yeah.
The racing team is a business as well. Not it's just a smaller business maybe, but or maybe it's not. I don't. You're probably going to put $3 million into it, but you know, I bet you could if you wanted to, right? So,
Vincent, you've been around the sport for a long time, and today we found out that a former drag racing broadcaster and announcer, Bob Unkefer, had passed away. During your full-time competitions, even though he left the sport in 2016, maybe he came back another time when you were racing. Did you have a chance to ever meet him?
I don't have many personal experiences with him. I do know he was great, and it's a shame. I actually just told it to Taylor the other day. The drag racing world, I feel like, has been getting hit hard the last couple of years. It just shows you never know what tomorrow brings, and you just got to live your life to the fullest. Because I just feel like, I don't know. I'm going on a tangent, but I don't have very many personal experiences with him. Obviously, very sad for the whole racing world. But like I said to Taylor the other day, the racing world, I feel like it's like losing so many people, and it's just unbelievable to me.
Yeah, we lost several racers this year.
Yeah.
Bob was a great announcer. We only had the privilege of hearing him a few times, but during the divisionals, my Aunt Jackie would race at a lot of them, and she actually just talked to him at no problem. She had a really nice conversation with him. But like she told us, she was like, who knew that would be the last time I spoke to him? Like, it was a nice conversation. And what I've been really thinking about lately to myself and telling my mom and Jackie and Tori is like, he was fine announcing, and then he announced that he had cancer, and then his wife put that he's on hospice, and he's gone. It's like crazy. You wake up one day and there's a problem, and the next thing you're not here anymore. So I think it's so important to live every day like it's your last. I know people say it all the time, but not many people actually put those words into action. And you never know when your last day is going to be. You never know when the last goodbye is going to be to the person. And that's why I oversay it, but I always tell everybody I love them when I hang up the phone with them, because I would like to know that like the last word to people that I care about was I love them, and that then I can like feel a little bit better on that was my last communication with them. But it's definitely sad and definitely puts life into perspective. The more people you lose, the more you appreciate being here and your family being here and healthy.
I think unless your name's Jackie Fricke, you don't live your life really to the fullest every day. But she every day wakes up and does everything she wants and like gets to do everything. And I've been lucky enough to travel with her, but it is crazy. Like Taylor said, living every day to the fullest. I've been trying to do that because, I've watched people my age, die from crazy freak accidents. And I think Jackie's taught us all a lot of like just living every day like it could be your last, and that's super important in today's world and how life is right now.
The final question for you guys: we're in the Northeast here in New Jersey, and Vincent and Taylor's in New York, but we have lost Raceway Park. We were about to lose Atco Dragway. There was some issues that a driver unnamed, well, I know who it is, you guys know who it is, tried to stop it, and then the Pinelands Commission voted against it. So we don't know how long we're going to have that track. Then we have a track up in North Jersey called Island Dragway. There was some issues with that. So here in the Northeast, we may be losing tracks in New Jersey, and pretty soon we may not have any. What are you guys' thoughts on us not having drag racing here anymore? And we're kind of in the biggest media market there is because we're closer to New York, and that is the number one media market in the world. And drag racing and drag strips are kind of non-existent here. Well, we got two, but we might not have any pretty soon.
For Tori and I, it's even more than just a drag strip. It's where we grew up. It's our property backs up into Atco. So our property line eventually meets up to it. It's not exact. It goes on a little bit further where it's like the township's woods area, but we literally back up to it. So when they were proposing this idea to sell it to IFF or what no, that's
IAA.
Whatever that was.
The same people bought Raceway Park.
It was more than just selling the racetrack. It was now all this traffic that was going to be on our roads, all this environmental hazards that was going to be in our area, and not to mention our childhood and where my parents met and where I want to raise our daughter. So it was a lot to take in, and I'm really thankful, even if we just get a couple more years out of it, that we're enjoying the time that we have there. But it definitely stinks for the racers because we're just losing more and more places to go do what we love. And I think it all comes down to supporting these tracks. And we saw a lot of people on the Zoom meetings with the township and stuff that hadn't been to Atco in like 35 years. And I'm like, as much as you're on here trying to save it, why don't you go support it when it's open and make sure that we don't get to this point again, instead of just like being a keyboard hero on the internet and saying like, oh, we love Atco. Well, go support Atco and show them why you want to keep the racetrack around. So I think it really comes down to supporting these tracks too, not just saying you're going to support them, actually going there and being there and making people go there.
Yeah, I agree with Taylor. Like, if we did lose Atco, that's definitely, it would hit home more than if we lost Island, because we didn't really ever race there. But luckily, I think, and I think Taylor can agree to this, and probably Vincent too, just from listening, but where we live, the land around here is very like sacred. That's the better word for it. Like, when we had to build our pole barn, my dad had to jump through so many hoops just to build a little barn. Like, they're very like, sacred with their land. They don't want anyone building on it. So I just hope that they'll keep their foot down and not ever let it change, because it's already a drag strip. And, everybody in that general area of Atco, like, doesn't mind the drag strip, but they don't want it to turn into a junkyard, basically. So I hope that the Pine Barrens can keep that as a forever no, so we can hopefully keep that a racetrack. And even, if the Capones do sell it, hopefully it could go to somebody else who wants to keep it a drag strip, and, maybe even make it better than it already is, and get back all the races that they had when our parents were 20, when they were racing there every weekend and stuff like that.
But what Vincent said too is, and on the flip side, which was hard for us to really get into this head space of it, but you really couldn't blame the racetrack owners when they're getting presented with $11 million, where they bought a racetrack for $2 or $3 million. Like, you can't fault them either. I know it's hard to say and to think about, because it's where I grew up. It's where I love to race. It's where there's so many memories, but they were handed a very large sum of money. That's life-changing money. So in the same aspect, you can't fault them for it, but it does stink. And I hope that we can get more people to buy racetracks that are racers and not land developing companies. And I hope they find somewhere else to buy land, because I'm over them taking our racetracks.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe I'm opening up a can of worms here too, but you got to think about it. There's always going to be a certain amount, like I think, Vincent, you sort of alluded to this, that there's going to be a certain amount of street racers no matter what you do. But there could be an increase in that, which endangers everybody. So,
Okay.
right? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know if you'll ever you'll never get rid of street racing, because that's a different breed of people. They like that, atmosphere. They like the rebelness of it. I think that's a whole other thing. But for the guy that wants to race on the track but can't because there is no track, there's a bunch of those people as well. So having the tracks around takes those people off the street. But like Anthony was saying, it won't be good. We need to keep these tracks around for us racers. None of us racers want to see them go, especially us local racers, because now we're traveling. Now we're traveling even further to go do what we love to do. And it just makes it tough, makes it that much more expensive. And then before you know it, you stop doing it because it's too hard to do. But I think at the end of the day, owning a drag strip, it's a business. You got to put money in your pocket and food on the table, and if you can't make that happen for whatever reason, that's a lot of the time why these tracks close down. I mean, look at Charlotte and Vegas. Bruden Smith owns those, and I don't think needs those tracks to generate any money per se. It's more of like a hobby for him, I think. So maybe if someone like that picked up some of these tracks where they don't necessarily need the income just to keep the sport going, would be good. But who knows if that'll happen.
you'll have to invite Elon Musk to a race.
Yeah, he'll I don't know if he'll like it very much. There's not many electric race cars, and I'm going to stick to burning fuel for my race car.
That's supposed to be coming. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, it's coming.
Are you going to like it? I mean, do you think that'd be cool?
I mean, I don't think you could ever get rid of, a gasoline burning engine for racing. You could definitely have an electric class per se, but not my cup of tea. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Tori, Taylor, and Vincent, thank you for joining us tonight. We'll close up the show. So outside of being on Facebook and YouTube Live right now, this will be uploaded on Rumble and BitChute in the next few days, and also on Anchor.fm in the coming days as well. That's the podcast version. Thank you, Tori, Taylor, and Vincent, for joining us today. I'll see you guys at Atco next weekend for the divisional, and good luck on the rest of your racing this season. Except
you
for
for having
Taylor,
us.
Yeah,
what was your
thank you.
baby.
Good
So
night.
that was fun, and good luck with the baby.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Aunt Tori.
Thank you.